Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to fresh episode of ATP Live Monday. Hope you can see me and I hope you can hear me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whichever platform you're watching from. Welcome to ATP Live Monday. It's been a busy day, but we're here. So this program is brought to you by Ask the Pediatricians Foundation. The goal is for us to answer any questions that you may have about the health of your children over the next 16 minutes. However, if you still have any questions after the live session, you can always post your question directly to our Facebook group on Facebook, and from Mondays to Saturdays, and we'll try to answer it as soon as we can, hopefully. Within 72 hours, most of the time, we would have answered your questions. So please share the video, whichever platform you're watching from, you can share the video and you can invite your friends and your family to ask the questions. So please drop your questions in the comment section or in the question box. Remember to tell us the age of the child. Remember to keep the question short and straightforward to the point. So I'm also just going to try and do that right now so that I can share, everybody can see me and they can hear me. So just give me a couple of some minutes to do that. All right. So everybody can share. Just let us share the videos. Let's pin them. But while you're doing that, let me know you are here. I can see a few of you already on Face and Instagram. So just share the videos and let us know you are there. How has your Monday been? And for those of us in Nigeria, how are we getting ready for the election? And I know we've had a couple of rough weeks. All right, but I hope the children are coping well despite the current situation. We believe that things will get better soon. So, welcome everyone. Welcome. So, what I'm doing is just sharing the video, making sure all the other platforms that we have, they can see the videos and they can, yeah. So, I'm just going to make sure they are pinned in the various groups and then we can start. Welcome. So if you already have your question, you can start dropping them so that we have enough time to answer your questions. But remember that this is just an hour program. If you still have questions beyond the live program, feel free to post it on our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group. Okay. And one of our moderators, our professionals, they will be able to assist you. Remember that you can watch all the past videos on our YouTube channel, Ask the Pediatricians Foundation ATP TV. You can watch it on YouTube. You can also watch it on our Facebook page, Ask the Pediatricians Foundation Facebook page. You can watch it on our Instagram TV. Instagram, we always keep it there, so you can watch all the past episodes. And of course, if you want to read more, you can go to our website and you can read topics on any topic that we've discussed previously. You can always read them on our website. There are two programs we do weekly. So Mondays is the Q&A sections, ATP Live by 6 p.m. every Monday. You can come and ask your questions, and then Thursday is a teaching section, which is on 10 a.m. in the morning, and you can listen to it on our podcast as well. So I just take a particular topic that has to do with the health of our children, and I try to try to talk about it in a way for parents to understand, because health education is so important. It's one of the key child support strategies, making sure we empower parents, making sure you know what to do to prevent illness. And even if it happens, what do you do after it has happened? So that is our goal. That is what we do on ATP. Our mission is to say that no child dies from preventable uh, deaths. So that is why we do all this health education information. Of course, we also go to communities to do community medical outreaches, especially in communities where they have very limited access to pediatricians. But our main focus is to empower parents about the health of their children, and no child should die from preventable causes. All right, I've done all my intro and I've shared the videos. So welcome everyone once again. For those who are just joining us, welcome to ATP Live Monday. This is a program by Ask the Pediatricians Foundation, where you can ask any questions about the health of your children. A few housekeeping rules. Remember to start with the age of the child, and don't just say my child is 3 plus. That does not make any meaning to a pediatrician. So you have to tell whether it's 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. You have to be very specific, because we're not going to be guessing. Remember, we're not seeing your child, we're not seeing you. So you have to be very specific. Always start with the age. If you want to ask a question about weight, please include those weights, birth weights, current weights, weight at certain ages. Let us have some context. Remember to keep the question straightforward and to the point. Remember, things like rashes, things that require pictures, we won't be able to say that on this platform. So you may want to go and post such on our Facebook group. All right. Okay, so I think I'm ready to start now. I've got a question. No, just a comment. Good evening, Facebook. For those of you on Facebook group, I won't be able to see your name unless you give StreamYard the permission to show your name. But good evening all the same, and thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, doctor. Good evening, doctor. Good evening, everyone. All right, got one question. Say, doc, I went for 10 weeks immunization for my son, and he has been crying since we came back. Tried calling to no avail. It's not hot, neither is running temperature. It's not accepting to suck. Please help me on what next. Okay, so immunization, especially the 10, 6, 10, and 14 weeks immunization, where they give them injections into both thighs, quite painful. So sometimes children feel pain. So the paracetamol is not only for fever, you can also give it for pain. So I would say you should still give the child paracetamol, even though the child is not having fever, the child may be in pain. You can also make sure you are gentle. Some of us are not very conscious of the fact that the child just had immunization on those ties, and we just carry them, hope them, change them anyhow. We just handle the legs anyhow. So when a child has just had immunization on the tie, you need to handle those legs gently. Be very conscious of it. Don't back the child at that point, because you're going to be rubbing on the legs and all that. Just carry them gently. Be very, very gentle with their laps, at least for the next few minutes, few days rather. And you can apply ice packs. Just put it gently on it and all that. Then you can give paracetamol, so the child will be fine. Just watch out whether the child is having any like convulsions or anything. Those are the things that worry us, because some children can react horribly to immunization. It's very, 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 very rare, but it is not zero. So there may still be, but so just watch out for that. But otherwise, just be gentle, put some ice packs, give some paracetamol, just and be very gentle with the way you handle the baby, especially the legs for now. And hopefully the child should feel better in a few minutes. So don't worry or panic. All right, I'll go on to the next question on Facebook. Let me just take a sip of my tea. So my baby is 6 months and 20 days, is coughing and congested. What can I give? Nothing to give. Okay. So we don't want you to give anything for a child who is coughing, congested. We don't want to give cough syrup. We don't want to give anything. Okay. So most cough and catarrh in children are usually due to viruses, which means they don't require any drugs, they don't require any medication. So for a 6 months old, you are breastfeeding, keep breastfeeding. You are also giving other food after 6 months. Just make sure the baby is eating, baby is warm, and just watch the child for now. So if the child has fever with a cough, if the child has fast breathing, if the child has difficulty with breathing, then you have to take the child to the hospital because that may be signs of pneumonia. So, but if the child is just covered, catarrh, nose congested, you don't really need to do anything. If there's blocked nose with the mucus, you can apply saline drops in the nose. It will soften the mucus, it will flow out. But otherwise, it is something that will run his course and it will go away. So you don't need to do anything. The most important thing is to keep children away from people who have cough, catarrh, and all that. So, but over a couple of weeks, it should all clear. All right. So that's what we recommend at that age. All right. Instagram. Somebody tell me, Idol, please can I add ginger and garlic to 6 months pap? My default answer is to say no. I don't know why we all like all this garlic, ginger, blah blah. Most babies don't really need all this unnecessary flavoring of their pap. Some of them don't like it. Even some adults can't stand ginger, not even talk of the smell of garlic. So you don't want to start a baby who is just starting some new learning to eat food on things that even some adults can't even stand. So my thing is just go with a plain pap, leave out those things don't really add much. I know people have told you they do the seven wonders of the world, but that is they are good, but they are not necessarily like essential nutrients. And usually you don't need to start a child on that because you don't want child to start taking something and then they want to eat all the food. So plain pap would do. You can express your breast milk and add to the pap. You can add crayfish to the pap. You can add egg. But when you want to add things, do them one at a time. So do your plain pap and breast milk. You can add a little bit of sugar or a little bit of dates just to give it to sweeten it. Or if some of you that are using formula, you can add it as well and give. Then if you want to, next time you can add egg and you can mix it on fire, then boil it and cook it. And make sure you check whether the child has any rashes after you give anything for the very first time. If you give egg for the first time, watch out whether there's rashes because some children have egg allergy. Then the next time you're going to can add your crayfish and see whether the child has any reaction because some children react to fish and all that. So you have to be very conscious when you're starting complementary feeding. You do it slowly. Remember, for a 6 month old, the main food is still breast milk. So the complementary feeds is just twice a day and it's just like half a cup. So it is not the main thing where you're not planning for you to load them with pap. And so you have time to introduce food gradually. And when you are adding anything, add it one at a time and look out for any allergic reactions to them before you begin to increase. And remember, the pap should be thick pap, not watery. Don't give it through bottle, give it through with cup and spoon. So, but I would recommend you don't start with all those ginger, garlic, and all those other so-called flavors. I think it's better you leave it out for children. You just like when you're also starting giving them solids as well, you don't need to add a lot of pepper. You don't even need to add pepper at all to their food. There's really no calories in it. And children don't, so you don't want to give them things that will make them averse to those foods. So be very cautious of the texture, the taste, and anything that you're giving children. You start gentle, start slowly, and then we gradually increase as they get older. You can start to experiment with other things like that. All right. All right. So that's a question from Instagram. I can't see any other question from Instagram. Okay, please, Instagram people ask a question. Good evening, Mommy Messi. Thank you for joining us. Good evening, Ude Colors. Thank you for joining us. Those are the comments. There's no question yet. Okay. All right. So we go back to Facebook and then continue from there. Felicity say, I went to the health center 4 days ago with my 4-month-old. He's weighing 8.5. It was 3.4 for the bath. It's a little bit overweight. Yes, I agree. How are you feeding your baby? You didn't tell us. Is your baby on breast milk only or is your baby on formula feeding? Okay, we recommend exclusive breastfeeding. It's not unusual for some babies to be a little bit big in the beginning, but as they get older, they become more active. They tend to go down to their normal weight. So what is important for me to know for your baby is how you're feeding your baby. What I want you to do is to do your baby exclusive breastfeeding, okay? We don't want children to also be overweight. We also don't want them to be underweight. And so we try to maintain the middle, the healthy weights that we want. So for a 4 month old, averagely it should weigh 6.5. So 8.5 is not as if it is too much, but it's definitely on the upper limits of what is normal. But we're not going to say start starving the baby. Just keep breastfeeding the baby exclusively. If you are doing formula feeding, you may if you are doing mixed feeding, you may need to stop the formula because some of you give them a lot of those formula and you're still breastfeeding as well. So there's so much going into the child's body. So you have to be conscious of how you're feeding baby. But if you're exclusive breastfeeding, that's fine. You can just continue. All right. Okay, Felicity say we're on exclusive breastfeeding. Okay, that's fine. Just continue exclusive breastfeeding. But we have to keep an eye on your baby's weight. So we keep an eye next time you go for immunization or maybe in another 1 month. Just keep an eye. If baby keeps adding weight, like maybe the next time it's already 9 or 10, then I want you to see a pediatrician because there are also some medical conditions that the way they manifest is a child, you know, gain weight excessively. So we may want to investigate that. But if you are just exclusive breastfeeding and the baby is otherwise fine, we will not worry, but we just need to keep an eye on it. All right. So, but we're not saying you should not breastfeed the baby again because of that. Just keep breastfeeding. All right. Sometimes I also advise mother also watch what you also eat. Like if you eat too much of protein food and all that, it may also be going to your breast milk, and that can also contribute to that. But no need to worry. Okay, the second person, my baby is 7 months, she's not crawling yet. Okay, so before you ask questions about developmental milestones, you should know what is normal. I get a lot of questions from first time mothers, especially, and some people ask as early as like my 4 month old is not crawling, and I'm like, I mean, why should the baby be crawling as that? So you should know normal first before you know what is to worry. All right. If you know, you're just going to worry unnecessarily. So we don't expect a 7 month old to be crawling. We expect babies to crawl at 9 months. So there's no reason to ask why your 7 month old is not crawling because it shows that you don't know what is normal. Okay. And I know that most of you are looking at your other neighbor's baby or your friend's baby, and maybe the baby is already crawling at 7 months. Again, all children are different. So some people do a little bit faster, some people do it a little bit later, but it doesn't mean that those who do it later are abnormal. So we have what we call the normal range and what is average, where 50% of babies will do things. That is what we normally take as the average. So when we say babies crawl at 9 months, we mean that 50%, majority of babies will do it at 9 months. Some people may do it a bit later. Some people may do it a little bit earlier, but it is we worry for when it is not done at the normal time. So 7 months old should not be crawling, and I'm not worried. What I want from a 7 months old is to sit by herself. So if your baby can sit by herself, that's all. You don't need to worry. If you want to know more about what is normal developmental milestones, you can go to our Facebook, no, not our Facebook page, our website, www.askthepediatricians.com, and you can read the it's my child development on course. There's an article like that. You can read that, or you can go to my podcast, Ask Dr. Gbemi ATP podcast, and look for the podcast on child developmental milestones. So I talked about what are the common milestones and when do we expect them. Even for when we expect them, we also have what we call the average age, we also what we call the limiting age. In other words, for example, if as a pediatrician I tell you that averagely babies work at 1 year, but I'm not going to worry if your baby is not working at 13 months, but I will only start to worry if your baby is not working at 18 months, because that limiting age is 18 months. In other words, I'm going to still give the baby some chance. There's nothing wrong with them. They are just a little bit slower than, which is fine, which is normal. It doesn't mean it's abnormal. So that 1 year is just 50% of children. So I expect some babies will still not work at 1 year. Some will work at 12, 13 months. Some will work at 15, 16 months. But when should I start to worry that, okay, there's something going on here, will be 18 months. So that is the limiting age. So even for your baby now, I expect your baby to crawl 9 months, but I will not even worry if the baby is not crawling until 1 year. That is number one. Then number two, some babies don't even crawl. So crawling is never even something most of us worry about, because some babies don't crawl at all. They move with their bum. They just butt up, shuffle. That's what we call it, and or they just go from sitting to standing. So there are children like that. So crawling is not even something we will worry, because it may just be one of those babies who would never crawl, but they may get around in another way, so they can move with their bum and all that. So just bear that in mind. And I really go into all those details just so that people will not start to worry at all about all those developmental stuff. A lot of mothers worry about it, but you don't need to worry. All right. So, doctor, how do we know a distended tummy? Okay. I think you have to see a doctor to tell you whether a tummy is distended or not. But I mean, as an average mom, you are also sensible. You can, use your own personal judgment. So you should know what your baby's tummy look like on an average day before they eat or after they've eaten. You will know when children have eaten, their tummy is a little bit big, which is normal, even adults too. But if you think the child's tummy is really, really looking way out of normal, or you can even begin to see the veins that, showing off, or when you try to press the tummy, it's as if it's a drum, it's making so much noise. So it's a little bit tricky, to say, is it big from food or from air, or there's something wrong. So what I would just say, that if you are not sure, if you are worried about your baby's tummy, you're not sure whether it's normal or not, you have to see a doctor to figure it out, because there's no way I'm going to teach you how to know a distended tummy. But what I would just say, that use your own personal judgment. If you think it looks abnormal, you may come to us and we will say that is still normal. Then no, it's better to be reassured. There's nothing wrong than for you to mix out something that is wrong. So we don't mind you coming, and we just tell you, okay, don't worry about it. So that's fine. All right, but it's a little bit tricky there's no way you can measure it, there's no ruler, so we just have to rely on your judgment. Abigail, good evening, doc. My baby will be 8 months on the 26th, birth rate is 3.8, weight at 6 months is 6.9, current weight unknown. I know that my baby is always hot, but she's not running temperature from the body part to the head. So what does that mean? So how do you know your baby is hot? Your baby is not running temperature, but your baby is hot. That sounds very contradictory to me. All right. So anyway, what I would say is that if you think or you feel your baby is hot, get a thermometer. All right. There's a reason why we develop an instrument. Okay. It's because your feeling, your touch can be wrong. Okay. So your hand is not an instrument. Okay. So we prefer you get a thermometer, put it either under the armpits or in the mouth of the baby, wait for it to beep. These days we have digital thermometers, so you don't even need to buy, those ones that you have to read. Nurses have to teach you how to read. This time around, just get a digital thermometer. It's all over the pharmacy. Get it, put it in, and then read it out. Okay, we want to know what the temperature is reading. I don't want to know what you feel. We have to use the thermometer to know if the baby is really having temperature, having fever, or not. All right, so normal temperature is 36.5 to 37.5. That is normal. So if your baby's temperature is reading above 37.5, then that child has fever. Okay, I don't expect a pharmacist to just give you ibuprofen without checking the temperature. I expect the pharmacist to give you a thermometer, check the temperature, and then we can tell you what to do. So if your child has fever, which is temperature above 37.5, you can give paracetamol, you can give ibuprofen if you want to, and then recheck it again. So you know whether it's coming down or it's going up or it's just the same. Then there are other things you can do. You can give the baby a bath, you can put towel in like normal temperature water, and you can dab the baby's body to cool the baby down. So if you do that for a day or so and the child's temperature is still persistently above 37.5, then that child has got a fever and you need to take the child to the hospital. Then the question is, why is the child having fever? That is the question that we are going to answer. So there are many causes of fever. It could be malaria, it could be infection. And when we say infection, it could be infection in any part of the body. It could be hair infection, it could be throat infection, it could be urinary tract infection. There are many places where children can have infection. It could be chest infection. We just need to figure out which one, and then we can now. Sometimes we need to do blood tests. Sometimes we need to do urine tests. Sometimes we need to do malaria parasite test. We need to do all those things to help us to know why this child is having fever, and then we can now treat whatever we find. Sometimes we don't find anything because some viruses can also cause fever and the results will come back normal. So that does not mean there's nothing, just that it is not showing up on the blood test or the whatever test we have done. So that is what you need to do. But I actually find your question contradictory because you say your child is hot, but your child is not running temperature. That is a very contradictory statement because hot and running temperature means the same thing, and the same thing as also having fever, because sometimes people ask those kind of questions. They say, my child is not running temperature, but it's having fever now. So I just want parents to understand, because some people think that when we use the word fever, we mean malaria. No, fever is not malaria. Fever is just a symptom, and it's just a medical jargon for a child who is running temperature or a child who is hot, because all those three are supposed to mean the same thing. So I hope, but the most important thing for us really is not what you feel or not. Just get a digital thermometer, check the temperature, and let us know. Then we can let you know the next thing to do. All right. Somebody, Rabia, say a girl of 5-year-old is having a breast bud. Should the mother be worried? It depends on how big or the breast bud is. There's something wrong with your child having a breast bud. So we have what we call terminal stages in children when it comes to puberty. So we have what they should look like. We have up to terminal stage 1 to 4. So there's some budding a little bit, just a little thing there. Then after a while, when they're getting closer to puberty, you can see like a mound, like if that yam mound, you see a little bit. Then after a while, you begin to see that the nipple, you see what we call secondary mound, where you see the big breast and you see the one that is going to form the areola and the nipple, they are beginning to separate out. Then you go to stage 4, where you actually see the nipple projecting out and all that. So all these are various stages of breast development. So sometimes parents say there's something, then we see, oh, it's still normal, what we expect for that age. So if you think what you're seeing is really, really more than what you should be seeing a 5-year-old, let a doctor see the child, because we can decide whether it's still stage 1 or stage 2 or 3. So we can tell you whether we're worried or not. So that is number one. Then sometimes, even for some children, they can have what we call premature puberty. In other words, they begin to show signs earlier than normal, and it can be isolated. So they can just be that the breast alone is what is developing. Some babies can develop pubic hair alone, and sometimes some children can actually start to develop like normal puberty very early, before age of 8 years. For girls, 8 years, anything earlier than 8 years, we call it premature. And it could be just a random thing, but sometimes it could be a sign of a problem, maybe in the brain, something like a tumor producing some unnecessary hormones, causing the development of the child and all that. So it depends on what you're saying. But what I would say, that if you are not really comfortable with what you're saying, or you think there's something going on here, what you need to do is to see a pediatrician. We will examine the child and we'll tell you, oh, this is not something to worry about. Oh, yes, we are worried. If we are worried, we will investigate why, and then we can address whatever is going on with the baby. So it depends on what you're saying. But just having a breast bud alone is not enough to worry. It has to depend on how big it is and all that. So that's what I would say about that. All right. So don't have any question on Instagram. All right. Oludare Dixon, please, ma'am, my baby is always itching her arms and legs. It forms blisters, waters come out. She's 1 year, 1 month. Okay, so you need to see a doctor. I can imagine what you're talking. I think I will suspect what we call papilla urticaria. There's some children that tend to have these itchy rashes and then they start having bumps and then it will leave marks on their body and all that. It's one of those allergic conditions that children can have. What we normally say is to recognize the trigger. So some children is maybe through insect bites. Some children, it is when they go through grasses, or some children even doors. Different things can. Some children maybe it's a particular soap or a particular cream or whatever used on the body. So they are very sensitive to heat, and it makes them to start to have that itchy allergic reaction, and you begin to leave those blisters and marks. So unfortunately for allergic conditions, there's really no cure per se, but what we normally do is to avoid the trigger. So anything you notice that tends to cause your children to start having the rashes, the itching, you try to avoid it. So if you notice, it's maybe when the child is walking through a particular area, maybe a place where there's a lot of farm or grasses and all that, you avoid them. If you notice a particular product, a particular thing you use, you have to avoid them as well. And usually sometimes the itching is so bad, the doctors we can prescribe what we call anti-allergy medication, something to kind of reduce the itching. You must to keep their nails short all the time, so that they don't tend to scratch a lot. And then when you use on the skin, you don't need to use this harsh soap on the skin. Some of them, you all these sponge, all this Nigerian kind of sponge that are so harsh. So you have to be very gentle on the skin. Sometimes the skin doctors, dermatologists, they can give you like some oil that you even have to put in the water when you're bathing for them, and then you have to use what we call products that are not likely to cause a reaction, hypoallergenic skincare products, to keep moisturizing the skin so that the skin is moisturized, it's not dry, because when it is dry again, it's also trigger the itching and all that. So these are some of the things we do. Some children, as they get older, they outgrow those face. Some may still even have it even as adults. So it is just for you to recognize that and try as much as possible to handle it. Avoid all the triggers. Keep the skin well moisturized. Keep the nails short. Avoid any areas where they tend to break out rashes. Avoid products on the skin that can cause rashes. But you can also see pediatricians or dermatologists if you think you're doing everything and the child is still struggling. So those are the things that you can do. All right, I hope that's helpful. Okay, is it your same baby that has cough and catarrh, or is it another child? All right. Okay, if it is the same child that also have the cough, catarrh, and the skin rashes and all that, then your child has what we call atopy. Okay, some children have what we call atopy. It's like they have a kind of sensitivity. They have the kind of sensitivity to things. They have different kind of allergic reactions. So they can have it with their nose, they can have it with their skin, they can have asthma. So we call it atopic match. And sometimes they're even sensitive to certain food and all that. So some children have that kind of allergy kind of predisposition. We call it atopy. So you should see the doctor so that they can manage that. Usually we don't give cetirizine to children who are less than 2 years. So I don't know. Please, in children, avoid taking drugs on your own, and don't take drugs recommendation from people. Somebody will say, oh, that's what they give my own daughter. Then you just go and buy it. Please don't. They are very tricky things. So there are some drugs, for example, we never give to a child who is less than 2 years old. And I can see your child is 1 year old and you're giving cetirizine. That is wrong. So you should stop it. So, and please, before you give medication to children, read leaflets. They will always tell you in that leaflet, this drug should not be used in children less than 2 years old. They always write it there. Don't take prescription from people who are not doctors. Don't let neighbor family recommend drugs to you. I know they meant well, but there are so many things that doctors think about when we give drugs. There are so many things that people don't think we you don't know we're thinking about them. You just think we're just prescribing drug because your child is itching. Go and give something like that. No. So there are certain ones we cannot give in certain age group. So that is why you don't just use drugs. You don't copy and paste drugs. Don't say because they gave the sister, I will also give to the brother. No, please. These are very, very important. So always make sure that before you give any drug, it's a doctor prescribing it, except for your paracetamol, the multivitamin, those over the counter drugs. It's okay. And even for those ones, make sure you read the leaflets of every medication before you. I get a lot of questions of people telling me they've given the drugs, then they now read the leaflets and they now realize they shouldn't have. And I'm always so amazed, like, why do you give the drug first before reading the leaflet? It doesn't make sense. There is never an emergency in giving children drugs. Never. In other words, you don't always have to rush to give them drugs. The only time we have to give those kind of drugs is in the hospital. It's an emergency. It has to be in the hospital that we're rushing to give somebody maybe EpiPen or adrenaline and all those things. So only doctors go through those kind of emergency. But for your child who is at home with you that you want to give drugs by mouth, it is never an emergency. So there's never any reason why we should be in a hurry to give drugs to people. So before you give drugs, because I get this question a lot of time, read the leaflets. Okay, read the leaflets, read the drug, because some drugs look alike. Okay, somebody was telling me the other day she wanted to give a new drug, but she just gave another drug. Maybe she wanted to give a different antibiotics, and she gave augmentin, which was been an old one in the fridge. And I'm like, those kind of mistakes should never be happening, okay? Because you are not supposed to rush. You don't just grab any bottle and just pour it and give. No, take your time. There's never an emergency in giving drugs. I want people to just have that written in our brain. Even though you're giving your drug 6 hours ago, when you want to give again, still look at it. Still check again the dose. Make sure because don't assume you will remember all the time. You may not. You are a human being, will make human errors. So you check the drug, read it again. Okay, this is the right drug. Check the dose again. The pharmacists are very nice. They always write it on the pack everywhere for you so that you remember again. Check it again. I can't tell you how many times people have told me, oh, I should have given 1 meal. Oh, I gave 10 meals. Oh, I should have given it only once a day. Now I've given it 3 times a day. All those errors are because people are just doing it without thinking through. Giving drugs is not an emergency. And when you're giving drugs, you can't just do it mindlessly. You have to be alert to it because wrong errors can be dangerous when it comes to drugs. Because drugs are all poisons. What differentiates a one from the other is the dose. So if you give too much of paracetamol, your child can end up with renal liver failure in the hospital. So as simple as paracetamol is that we can just say go and buy it by yourself. You can give too much of paracetamol and the child will have liver failure. So drugs can never be given anyhow. So check the drug, check the dose, read the leaflets. Read it before you give it. There's no hurry in giving medication. So always read the leaflet because sometimes just that reading the leaflet will save you from doing the wrong thing. You're like, oh, I shouldn't have done. And sometimes I know you read leaflets and they say, oh, don't give it. And then you say, okay, but my doctor said I can give it. Then you ask us, ask your doctor, ask your nurse, ask the pharmacist. Because sometimes we as doctor, we can override the manufacturer's recommendation, and then we will explain to you why. The reason that sometimes some drugs are not tested in children, so manufacturer will say because we didn't test it in this age group, we can't recommend it, but doctors may have used it and they don't have any problem, so they will recommend you use it. So these are the reasons why you need to read those leaflets and you need to ask questions. But just always remember that it's far better to miss a dose of a drug than to give the wrong thing or to the wrong child or for the wrong reason. So if you miss a dose, we can always give it again. But if you have given the wrong drug, sometimes it's difficult to get it out of the body of the child. So let's remember that. So there's an opportunity for me to emphasize that. Okay, I think I have a few questions on Instagram. So before Instagram people get upset with me, let me just go to Instagram and deal with those questions. Adam Muze Say please, my 5 months and 3 weeks baby always have yellow discharge from my eyes. 5 months old yellow always have yellow. So I try not to. When you're talking to doctors, nurses, and others, please try not to use the word always. Tell us duration, okay? Your baby is 5 months old. So always doesn't mean the baby has been having it for 5 months, because the way I'm going to address it, your baby has been having it for 5 months, it's going to be different from you. You've been having it for only 1 week. I know for you, it sounds like it has ever always been there, but it's not necessarily have always been there. So I always prefer you tell us the duration in actual facts and figures. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 week, 5 days, that is more relevance than just to say that the child has always been having. Then the question is, why has the child always been having high discharge for is it for 5 months? So if you don't mind, you should let us know. It is not normal for a baby to be having yellowish eye discharge. It is never normal, okay? Sometimes when babies, when all of us wake up in the morning, even you as adults, you have this whitish discharge and you go and wash your eyes. And that is it. That is it. So that one is normal. All of us have the discharge in the morning, that is, but usually it's whitish, never yellowish. And the difference is that it will only be after sleeping. It will never occur during the day. So throughout the day, the child will be fine. So if your child is having yellowish discharge, that is not normal. If the child is having yellowish discharge throughout the day, in other words, you clean it now and it's coming out again, or if the eyes are coming together, or there's redness of the eyes, that is not normal. That is an infection within the eyes, and we need to treat it. And it should not be going on for always. So I really want to know what's your duration of always, because I would have expected that as a mom, you would have taken the child to the hospital if the child is having eye discharge that is coming out, and then they would have prescribed a medication. And if you've done that and it's still kept coming out, then we need to know why. Usually what we normally do is we take that discharge, we send it to the lab. We ask the lab to tell us what is causing this discharge, what antibiotics can we use, what drugs is best that we should use. And please make sure you are not putting anything in your baby's eye. Some of you put all this powder that you're applying on the baby's face, they enter the eyes, they cause the irritation, and the child is going to have eye discharge. So make sure you are not putting powder on the face. Some people also put all this tiro or kaja or whatever, call it. Don't, just stop it. All right, you are just introducing lead into the baby's body. Lead is a neurotoxin. It's going to cause damage to the nerves and the brain of the baby. So there's under no circumstances should you ever put all those tiro or lead or kaja or baby's eyes. Never. And I see a lot of Nigerian babies with all these eye pencil. Please, it is not cosmetic. You are just poisoning that baby's blood. Just stop it. So there's no reason any of those things should be getting near the baby's eyes. So make sure you don't do any of those ones. And if your baby is still having high discharge, then we need to really know why. We have to take the child to the hospital. We have to take a culture of the discharge. We need to know the antibiotics we give it, and then we'll see whether it should clear. So, but I don't know what your always means. So that's why I really want to know what to tell you. Okay, somebody said my mouth is not rhyming with the audio. Sorry, I think that is my that is the harp. Sorry, but as long as you can hear me, just check. Or maybe you can go out and come back. Okay, somebody is saying maybe you should check the network, but my network is fine. I think other people can hear me. Okay, I guess it's only Amusa that is having that challenge. I don't think anybody's. But don't worry, Amusa, whether my mouth rhymes with my audio, it doesn't really matter. Just, can you hear me? That's the most important thing. As long as you can hear me, that's fine. As long as we are catching up. All right. Let's see. Somebody say, how does the complementary feeding process apply to an underweight baby? Complementary feeding process is the same for everybody. Okay, so but if a child is underweight, the quantity of what we give that child may be different. So so you have to be more specific. So tell us the age of the child, tell us the weight of the child, and then we can give you information. So the way we do it, it depends. So if a child is underweight, sometimes we give more calories than the child who is not underweight. We'll give extra calories, but we don't necessarily increase the volume. So usually dietitian know how to work it out. So we will still give the same volume because we can't overload the child. There's a maximum amount of volume a child can take in a day, but we can increase calories without necessarily increasing the volume of the quantity of food that the child has to eat. So it's important. I don't like answering questions that are not in context. So I always need to know what is the age of this child, what is the weight, then we can start it from then, because there's a way we work it out and there's a way we'll advise you. But if you're not able to provide those information, if your child is on the weight, please see a pediatrician or a dietitian so that they can work it out for you, and that will be all that you need to do. Okay, so Adam Mose is giving me update. Your baby since 3 months. Okay, it's coming and it's going. Okay, yeah. So if your baby has been having high discharge since age of 3 months, that is 2 months now, 2 months and some weeks. And so it comes and goes. So it is not always. So there are times there is no discharge. So recurrent high discharge is different. So in that case, the question we need to know is that why is it happening? What are your practice? So if you come to me, those are the kind of question I'm going to be asking. What do you do? How do you take care of your baby? I really will assume something is getting into the highs that is causing, because once anything irritates the highs and children are putting their hands inside, the child is introducing the germ into their own eyes, then they're going to have a discharge. So maybe you have to review what I just told you now. No powder, no eyelid, nothing. Don't even oil. Some of you put so much oil on the baby's head, it drips down the face and it enters into their eyes. It irritates their eyes as well and cause eye discharge. So just get rid of anything that can be going into the eyes. And please do not put breast milk in the eyes. Do not put anything in the eyes. Make sure your baby's hands are washed. If your baby tends to itch their eyes, you can wear them minting, something that don't keep putting their hands in the eyes. Also make sure the hands are washed. Do that first. So if you do that and your babies keep having eye discharge, please see an ophthalmologist, not just even a pediatrician or any doctor. You have to see the eye doctors, because the eye doctors have to figure out, is there any other reason why this child is having this recurrent eye discharge? So, and they can fix it once and for all. Don't go to hospital where they just keep giving you eye drops. Okay, sometimes you have to go to a level, a hospital at a higher level, actually a hospital that's a ophthalmologist anyway, where they can actually take the discharge, send it to the lab, know what it is they're dealing with, and prescribe, and then they follow up and they can monitor that everything is clear, because it is not normal for your baby to have recurrent yellowish eye discharge. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, I think Instagram people have finished answering all your questions, so keep them coming. Let's go back to Facebook. Okay, someone said, what can you do to relieve colic in a baby? Okay, colic, number one, I always like people to tell me context, because sometimes people think colic will not be colic. So anyway, infantile colic is a baby who is crying for a long time, for hours, for no reason. The child is not hungry, the child is not wet, the child is dry. They just cry, they're just crying, and you can't figure out why they're crying, but the child is otherwise well and healthy. So it's a common condition in newborn, usually around that it's 6 weeks, 2 months old. But the good news is that it tends to go away by the time they're about 3 months to 4 months max. And most of the time there's nothing wrong. The child is fine, but they just cry. So what we normally do is just comfort them. All right. Some children tend to do it a bit more when they have a lot of gas in their tummy. So we always recommend that when you're breastfeeding the babies, don't allow them to suck in too much hair. Don't let baby cry a lot before you start breastfeeding them, because all those crying, they are just swallowing hair, and the hair has to pass through their intestine and have to be passed out as gas. And that process of even the gas moving through the intestinal tract tends to make them uncomfortable. So you see them kind of twisting their body because they are trying to pass out the gas. And so usually that's what we recommend, that when you finish feeding, you can try and pat their back, gently, so that some of the gas will come out through the mouth, and then some of them will come out from the anus. Sometimes some people feel like, especially for children who really have much of the gassy tummy and all that, if you give them all this like simethicone, which is Infacol, it helps a bit. It doesn't work for some babies, it works for some babies. That's something that can be helpful, but most of the time is one of those, it will come to pass. Okay, just some babies just rocking them, some babies just singing for them, so maybe just the white noise, like you put on the noise of your maybe a fan or washing machine, those white noise sometimes helps some babies, you drive them around the estates and then they'll be fine. So you just deal with it. But whatever you do, hang in there. I know sometimes it can be very frustrating for mothers. Don't do it alone. Sometimes you can hand over the baby to the nanny or the grandma or the husband and just have a break. Then you can come back, all right? And then you continue. But the good news is that it doesn't last forever. And usually by the time babies are 3 months, that they get bigger, they are more in control of their body and all that, colic will go away. So just find what works for your own baby, because some things work for one baby, that's work. But please do not give things like nospami, gripe water, all those things people give. Don't give them. All right, those things are not good. They don't do much good, and some of them can cause a lot of harm. So we don't recommend any of those things. I know they give you all in your hospitals when you're going home, but please don't give those spammy grape water, all those things. The only thing that we can still tolerate is maybe Infacol, but any other thing else, nothing. But just relax, it will come to pass. If you want to read more about colic, we have a article on our website on infantile colic, which you can read, and it talks about all these various strategies. You can Google it as well. I'm sure you will see what works, and just try. But the good news is that it will come to pass. So just hold on. All right, something, my baby is 15 weeks on breast milk. She's rolling well, but when she rolls on her tummy, she vomits. So don't let a baby roll shortly after eating. No, keep a baby upright. If the baby are just finished eating, don't just put them straight down. And definitely that's not the time to roll on their tummy. So definitely I won't be surprised if they have a little bit of vomiting of breast milk, or it's called reflux, but it's not something to worry about. Yeah, baby can have reflux. We don't worry about it. So there's a difference between vomiting and reflux. What you just described is reflux, because you say she brings out a bit of digested breast milk. So that is it is not, we don't use the word vomiting. So I always want parents to understand the difference between vomiting and reflux. So vomiting is a child who is an active process. Usually most children, when they want to vomit, they retch. You will see them, retching out as if they want to vomit, and they bring out a lot of the milk, and it is very projectile. It can go straight to your face or to your clothes, and that is vomiting. It's active usually, and usually children are not well when they're vomiting. But reflux, baby just playing, and then a little bit of milk is coming out, which is just dripping. It's very passive. It's not, and usually small quantity of the milk, it just drop down. So you just put a bib around the baby, just wipe it off. That is reflux. That is not vomiting. Okay, so you need to know the difference between reflux, because for reflux, you don't need to do anything. Most babies have reflux. I've explained why they have reflux, because they have a very small stomach. The space between the tummy and the mouth is very short, and like you putting down the baby immediately after feeds, it is easy for the milk to come back. There is no what we call the sphincter that separate the esophagus from the stomach is not yet well developed, so it's not fully closed. So unlike if you eat on your head down, the food will still stay in your stomach, because there's a sphincter that blocks it from going back. But for babies, that thing is not yet fully developed, so the milk can come out. So which is why when you finish feeding your baby, keep them upright 15 to 30 minutes, and so that the food will settle, digested a bit before you now put them down. But don't worry, most babies have it and it will stop. As long as babies are on milk, they can have reflux, but by the time they're about 1 year, fully on solid, reflux should stop. Some babies have it worse than the others. Some babies have it so bad, like the reflux, we have to give them something to take in their breast milk, or we have to give them something like what we call something like antacids and all that. But that is for the pediatrician. We only do that if the child is losing weight and on the reflux is really bad. But most babies, what you just described, It's not vomiting, it's reflux, your baby is gaining weight well. You don't need to do anything more than what I just said. Keep the baby upright. Don't put the baby down immediately after feeds, and let the food digest a bit before you put the baby down. And that's all. But you don't even need to worry about it. Just clean it and that's it. All right. Somebody say good evening, dog. My baby is 13 weeks, 3 days. She's formula feeding and she eats every 2 hours. Why is your baby not on breast milk? All right. We prefer your baby to be on breast milk. There's no reason why your baby, if your baby is not preterm baby, there's no reason why baby should be eating every 2 hours. Baby should eat every 3 hours, every 3 to 4 hours. So I don't know why you need to tell me more information about your baby so I can advise you appropriately. So because you have not given us the background, the advice is breastfeed your baby exclusively. And you can still do it, you can still start it now. As long as your breast milk is coming out, breastfeed your baby exclusively. And most babies that are breastfed and they are term babies, they breastfeed every 3 to 4 hours, which is what we recommend. If for any other reason you have to do formula feeding and your baby is a term baby, then your baby should be eating every 3 to 4 hours. The instruction on how you mix it and everything is there. So it is what you give your baby that your baby is eating. So you are the one dictating, you are the one deciding that I'm going to give baby a food every 2 hours, and you may end up overfeeding your baby. He didn't tell us the weight of your baby. He didn't tell us all those things. So how do you know the baby is not satisfied? A lot of people always use crying as it means that baby is not getting enough breast milk. Wrong. Baby cries for everything. Crying is the only language they speak. So they only don't cry when they're hungry. Baby will cry when they are wet. They cry when the nappy needs to be changed. They cry when they are tired. They cry when they are happy. They cry when they are bored. So don't use crying as a way to know that your baby is not getting enough food. Wrong assumption. So there's a quantity of food your baby needs to take in a day depending on the weight of the baby. But most babies that are term babies will be eating every 3 to 4 hours. For preterm babies, because we don't give them a lot at a time, we make it every 2 hours. Not the volume, but it's just because we have to. They can't take a lot of volume at a time for the preterm babies, low birth weight babies. So usually pediatrician will tell you how you those are babies will feed every 2 hours, other babies 3 to 4 hours. But you need to give us more information than what you have given now. And the best thing is still for you to breastfeed your baby exclusively and on demand. So that way we're sure your baby will not take too much. All right. Somebody say my baby is 8 months, has not developed any teeth. Is it normal? Yes, it is normal. So babies may not develop teeth until they are 1 year old, and that is normal. My baby is 7 weeks on breast milk. I realized since I gave birth to her, whenever she hear loud noise, she kind of acts shocked. That is normal. Baby starts with loud noises. So that means your baby can hear. So there's nothing for you to worry about that around that. So you should just be gentle. Don't just be slamming door and opening. When you have babies, be very gentle with the noise we make in the house, okay? Because yes, they can hear and they will start to those, especially when it's a sudden loud noises. So that is a normal thing. We are not worried about that. But you just tell people to be gentle when baby is there. Somebody said I bought naan for my baby on Thursday because I was sick with malaria. Okay, whether you are sick or not, you can still breastfeed your baby. That is not an excuse to give your baby formula. You are not having appetite, you are not lactating well. But immediately my baby gave him just two, and then he has been stooling. How old is this baby? I took him to hospital, was given zinc for resveratrol. It's still stooling 4 months, 3 weeks. What can I do? Nothing you're going to do. The stooling will stop. It will still stop. But I wish you have not done what you did. But we're already past that stage. But stop the formula feeding. Just breastfeed your baby. Breastfeeding is not a matter of whether you are. Interestingly, babies can take enough breast milk from you even when you are not eating, okay? Because they are, it's like they're parasite. As long as baby is sucking on your breast, you'll be producing milk because the body will produce more milk. Of course, you will feel tired more, obviously, because if you're not eating, you will start feeling tired and dizzy. But just drink a lot of water. So, but now that it has happened, when did it happen? On Thursday. Today is what? Today is Monday, so you just 3 or 4 days ago, just relax. Sometimes diarrhea may take up to 10 days to resolve. So just keep breastfeeding. You can give the ORS, the oral zinc, whatever is fine, but it will stop. It will have to run its course to stop. We don't, this is why we don't want formula, because of all these issues. That's why. But mothers always don't want to listen to pediatricians. So anyway, let's leave it at that. Is Agnesia soap good for babies? There's nothing like a soap that is good for babies, okay? Just use a normal toilet soap for babies, preferably one without perfume, without smell, without antiseptics in them. And I think Agnesia is one of those antiseptic soap. The normal soap should do for your babies. Okay, don't use antiseptic soap, medicated soap, blah blah soap. Don't use them on children. Okay, we only use it, for example, if the child has skin infection and we want to clear it maybe for a couple of weeks. We don't want you to be using it continuously. Use a normal soap, the normal bath soap, preferably not the smelly one. You can use liquid, wash for babies and all that. The less chemical is in whatever you're using for your baby, the better for your baby's skin. All right, because all those chemicals can irritate the baby and it's not good for their skin. Somebody said my baby is 15 months, blah blah. Okay, I think this is the same question. Don't ask the question twice, just ask once. I will answer them and don't need to worry about it. All right. If I have not answered your question, just stay there. I'm just going to them in order in which they are showing on my screen, but I'll definitely answer them. Okay. Somebody said my 23-month-old baby has been sleeping more than usual. How many hours? For the past 2 days and eating less, he has no fever. What could be the issue? So you need to tell us how many hours baby is sleeping, and then we can figure out whether it's more, whether it's abnormal or not. And so if baby is sleeping, eating less, that's why there's what is going on. Where does baby stay during the day? Baby going to school, going to crash? Are they giving any drugs there? Those are the things you have to start thinking about. So, and then we need to you need to give us more specific information. Eating less doesn't really tell us much. Sleeping more doesn't tell us anything. You need to give us figures. How many hours will you be sleeping a day? And how many times they be eating, what quantities, then we know whether we should worry or not. So just for now, if the baby is not having fever, just watch. You don't have to do anything, but just make sure where your baby is during the day, what is happening. You can ask them, make sure there's nothing wrong going on. All right. Just want to make sure I didn't miss out Instagram people. Okay, I have some questions on Instagram. I'll answer them after this one. So somebody, my baby is 5 months, birth weight 3.5, current weight not sure. She's having temperature for 2 days. You are presently at the hospital. That's good. What can be the cause? You're in the hospital. Just wait and see the doctor. How do you want to ask me? All right. Don't need to worry. Don't need to worry. You are in the hospital now. Just wait and see your doctor. Don't need to panic. I don't have the what do you call it now? We don't have these magic ones that once you tell me your baby has fever, then I would automatically know what is causing fever. There's no way I'm going to know. I need to ask you questions. I need to examine your baby. So, and I'm happy you're already in the hospital. So one of my colleagues is going to do all that. So that's the best person that can tell you why your baby is having fever. If you are, I don't know whether you are at the beginning. I already mentioned that there are many things that could cause fever. Could be malaria, could be infection. And when we say infection is like a big group. Infection in any organ of the body, in the eyes, in the ears, in the throat, in the chest, in the urinary tract. So there are so many things. But a doctor, when they see your baby, ask a question, examine your baby, they can figure out which of them is the cause of the fever, and then they can advise you what to do. There is no home remedy. The only thing you can do is give your child paracetamol when your child is having fever. But more importantly, we need to know what is causing the fever, and then we can advise you. Okay, somebody said my baby was preterm. Okay, I guess that's the person that was feeding the baby 2 hours. Then why is your preterm baby on formula? Your preterm baby should be on breast milk. if more than anybody else, your preterm baby should be on breast milk, because there are complications of giving preterm babies formula feeding. You can cause what we call necrotizing enterocolitis. You didn't tell us the age of your baby. You didn't tell us so many things about your baby, but it is the best thing for a preterm baby is actually breast milk and not even formula, because their own tummy is even more sensitive and more fragile, and breastfeeding is best so that to avoid complications like necrotizing enterocolitis and all that. So anyway, if your baby is a preterm baby, I want to assume your baby should have a pediatrician. So please discuss your baby's feeding with the pediatrician. The quantity you are giving matters as well. So the quantity you need to give, and you can't afford to overgive to a preterm baby, because if you give too much, you can actually cause a heart problem. So instead of baby gaining weight, baby actually begin to lose weight. So preterm babies have to be under pediatrician. The pediatrician should be the one telling you the quantity to give your baby. And if it's every 2 hours, they will tell you the quantity to give, and then they will be monitoring your baby. Then they will tell you when to increase it and all that. So it's very, 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 very important. You have to be very careful with preterm babies. They are very fragile. So you have to be very careful with them. All right, let me just go to Instagram and ask the question. Somebody is saying, hello, doctor, is it okay to give baby cold food? What is baby? Who is the baby? So is it a newborn baby, a 1 year old baby? You always have to put the age of the child in the question. So I mean like cold fruits, puree of juice from the fridge. Okay, so I want to assume you're talking about maybe at least a child who is on complementary feeds. For babies on complementary feeds, if you're giving them fruits and all that, it's okay, but not like ice cold, like blocked and all that. That won't be good for them, but obviously if you have stored the food and you have preserved it in that nature, then you have to give it, but not like ice cold or blocked. But preferably if you are going to give like normal food, we prefer you make it fresh, hot and warm. That's the best way to do that. um da, 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 da. Okay, that's that. Okay, yeah. Is it necessary to give formula after 6 months if a baby is still breastfeeding? It is not necessary. It is not even needed at all. I love that question, because a lot of mothers always think complementary feeding is formula feeding, which is not. Okay, so I get a lot of questions like, oh, my baby is 6 months old now, so I went to go and buy this and that, and I'm giving the formula, and the baby is not taking. I'm like, you don't even have to buy formula ever, because the only milk your baby still needs is breast milk. So formula is not necessary for complementary feeding. What we want you to give is to give other food, solid food from your kitchen, while your baby is, you know, continue to breastfeed. So as long as you're breastfeeding, if you're breastfeeding for up to 2 years, you don't ever have to give formula, because the breast milk is still the milk that the baby needs. Okay. The reason why some mothers always jump on formula is because they don't want to breastfeed, or they are slowing down the breastfeeding, and then they want to give other food and they use the formula as the milk. But really, it's not necessary at all. And a lot of people also misunderstood complementary feeding means you can now start giving formula feeding and go and buy bottle, they go and buy formula. Not necessary. So, and that's why we always encourage everyone to go through our complementary feeding guide. If you're on our Facebook group, you know what I'm talking about. We have a guide section, and one of those guides is complementary feeding, and we have videos there that tells you how to go about complementary feeding, when to start, what to give. And I always tell people, because many people always watch those videos, that they still ask me question, and I know you've not digested what you are watching. You will never see them use an example of any formula throughout those videos, and they will be using food that you normally use, your ewedu, your swallow, your rice, your yam. Those are the food that you have in your kitchen. So you don't ever have to go to buy so-called baby food. A lot of mothers like asking me that question a lot. And a lot of people will say, oh, my baby even doesn't like baby food, but will eat my own food. And I'm like, you don't understand complementary feeding for asking that, because there is really no baby food. What we want your baby to eat is your home food. Of course, when you are starting the baby, you don't go with eba first. You don't go with your apple. You're going to go with something soft, something porridge like, and then gradually, that's where you start when baby is 6 months old. So soft porridge, then later you go to mash, then before you go to the full solid. So that is what we want the baby to eat. Why they keep on breastfeeding, eating the same food you're giving the rest of the family in the right texture, right quantity, right mix. So it's not just pap alone. It's not just eba or semo alone. You're giving carbohydrate, you're giving protein. There's egg or there's fish, there's beans, there's granules. You're adding those ones. You're still breastfeeding. You're giving fruits. You're mashed banana, apple, carrot. You're adding all those things to it. That is complementary feeding. So if you want to know more about complementary feeding, you can go to our website. We have articles on complementary feeding. You can go to our Facebook group. We have a guide section. Please watch those videos. You can also watch those videos on YouTube. Global Health Media. They've made those videos from African people, and the videos are very obvious, and they teach you how to go about complementary feeding, and you don't ever need to go to a store to buy anything at all to feed your baby. You can feed your baby with all the food you have in your own house, in your kitchen, with your breast milk, and you'll be comfortable doing complementary feeding. All right, so you can watch that. You also got my podcast, Ask Dr. Baby podcast. I have it on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, so many podcast platforms. You can also listen. Infant feeding for the first 1,000 days. How to go about complementary feeding. It is so important that I think there's a lot of misconception already, even before people start complementary feeding. People just think complementary, oh, and then they don't. I always find that people that learn first, when you really go through all these things I've talked about, read the article or watch the videos and all that, then you do it right from the beginning, you are fine. But people that start with the misconception, okay, I'm going to go and buy milk formula, and then they start running into trouble, then they come back to us. So let's learn it first, do the right thing first, just keep breastfeeding, learn it first, and then you go about it and you'll be fine. So I hope that is helpful. All right, time is gone. Wow, time has gone. We have to finish now. So I'm just going to answer the rest of the questions and we can finish for the rest of the day. Oh, this question is so long. 9 months, has been throwing up since Thursday. Took her to the hospital. Vein couldn't be found. Oh, sorry. She started slowly on Thursday. Blah, blah, blah. Watery. Have they found the vein now? She was given diastop. No, no diastop for a 9 month old. No flag. Which hospital do you go? You need to go to a different hospital. It seems like you are in a hospital where they don't know what they're doing. Please leave there. Take your baby to a government hospital. Go either to a general hospital or a teaching hospital, and they will do the right thing. So please stop the diastop, stop the flagyl, stop all those nonsense. If your baby is having diarrhea, the most important thing is to give ORS. If baby is vomiting, oh yeah, baby is vomiting, so baby cannot take ORS by mouth, then we definitely have to get a line into that baby. So you have to take baby to a hospital where they can get the line, and because the child can get so dehydrated, and I'm really worried for that baby. And that was since Thursday. Yeah, that's a long time. No, 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 no. Until today, no. This baby has to go to a different hospital now. All right, because we don't want the child to get. What kills a child is not diarrhea. What kills the child is a dehydration, is the electrolyte imbalance. So as long as the child, whether the child is passing stool, we're not going to stop the child passing stool. What we need to do is to replace what the child is losing. And children can lose their water so quickly. They can go into shock so quickly. I'm not even sure this baby has been coping from Thursday. This is Monday. That's 4 days. No, this baby has to be out and go to a hospital. If baby is still vomiting, that is, yeah. Okay, you need to go to the hospital. You need to go to a different hospital. So sorry about that. I don't know whether you are back home or you are seeing that same hospital, but I'm not happy with the management of your baby, and I really want you to leave. You didn't tell us where you are, but you can go to any of the government hospitals that has a pediatrician or that has a children emergency room. That is where your baby should be. Baby, at what age should I start bringing out my baby son when I back her? Okay, African mothers, it's not compulsory for you to back babies. I hope you all know that. That is number one. So, number two, so this issue of bringing out babies and because I'm an African mother, so that's how you're saying it is when your baby's neck is controlled. So when your baby's neck is not going to fall. So when you bring out the hand, the baby can keep the head straight. So that is at least minimum of 3 months. But please try and don't bag babies a lot. It's better to actually keep them in front or keep them on their bed so you can actually see, because when they're at your back, sometimes you don't know what is going on there. So I know it's a cultural thing, but try and not do it too much. Make sure you can actually see the baby. So I prefer you do it in the front, or you just put the baby in their own bed and let the baby get used to lying down on the bed early enough. So a lot of you do all this backing and carrying, and then when baby is old enough, then you come back to Dr. Baby and say, "Oh, my baby must. I always have to carry my baby. My baby will not lie down on the bed. He's always crying." No, you started the habit, so stop it now. Let baby get used to falling down, falling asleep on the bed, sleeping on their home bed. Not every little thing you have to carry them. I'm not saying you shouldn't carry them at all, but don't let them develop it into an habit, because you are going to be the one to complain later on, because then they won't sleep until you bag them. It's not the best. Okay, I'm just giving you a tip. All right, cutting baby's hair is not compulsory. You don't have to ever cut your baby's hair. You can leave it alone. All this is a cultural issue. They are not medical issue. So some mothers never cut their baby's hair. It's fine. Some people cut it at 8 days, like those who practice Islamic religion. I think they always cut their baby. If they remove baby's hair at 8 days, it's fine. So do what works for you, but we don't have any medical issue. The only time is if there's rashes or anything, that's when we will want to intervene. But otherwise, you are free to do your baby's hair the way you like it. You don't need to do anything. Somebody said I'll stop after that too. Okay, yeah, that's the mom that gave the baby none. Okay, thank God you stopped. Please stop though. Thank God. Somebody said, "Can my 6 months old take yogurt?" Yes, you can, but please go and do complementary feeding course first. Okay, all these questions, can maybe take this, can maybe take that. I always feel it's better you know the principles behind all these things first, so that you know what you're trying to achieve. And please don't let start babies on chunks. I see people asking me, can baby take biscuit? Can they take what's the other thing they always like to ask? What's that popular snack? I've forgotten. I'll remember later. So people start asking, then I was like, "Oh no, don't start them on biscuits, on Ribena, on Bobo, on cheese. Is this cheese something? I've forgotten the name of that snack. No, don't start. Don't at 6 months old. You want to start them on chunks. Then later you come back and say, "Dr. Women, they are not eating. No, they only want to take biscuit and juice." You started it. I always tell mothers, baby, children don't know anything. They only eat what you give them. So if you don't ever give your child any particular food, they will never know that food exists in the world, because you are the one giving them. So one of the videos you're going to watch on our complementary feeding is actually what not to give. There's actually a video on what you should not be giving your children. And please don't give them junk food. Don't give them, I just wanted to remember the name of that particular snack. It's very popular. Don't give them all those junk. Give them real food. But yogurt is fine. It's like milk that has been, that has been fermented and all that. So it's fine as long as it's unsweetened yogurt, not the one that has all those other sugar added and everything. No. So please be careful what to give your children. Give them food, breast milk, not chunks. All right, somebody's 5 weeks, so he has not pulled for 2 days. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe some exclusive breastfeeding may not pull for days up to 2 weeks. There's no reason for you to worry. Just keep breastfeeding exclusively. Last question. How do I make my 6-month-old baby take more water? Why does baby need to take more water? The baby doesn't need to take a lot of water. So 6 months old baby should be taking a lot more breast milk. And breast milk still has a lot of water. But every time you give the complementary food, you can give them water. Don't give so much water that there's no space for food in the baby's stomach. So we don't want you to load them with water, because if you're doing things right, your baby is still taking a lot of breast milk 2 meals that are complementary feeds. You can give water after that. So again, complementary feeding time is not a time to start making the baby to drink so much water, water, water. No, it's just a little sleep here and there. Please still breastfeed these babies a lot, and they will get a lot of water from breast milk. But when you give them the solid after the pap or after the mashed banana, mashed potato, whatever, then of course they can drink water on top of it. But it's not as if we want them to be drinking water a lot. No. So I don't know what you mean by small quantities. So for example, let's say your 6 month old baby is 6 kilo. All the fluid that we want the baby to take in a day should be not be more than 600 mils. So, which means including your breast milk, including the water, anything liquid, everything together, maximum 600 mils a day. So just think about how much of breastfeeding that baby is taking. So sometimes they can get all the water they need for the breast milk, but we want them to start getting used to drinking water anyway, because after a while, they won't be taking breast milk, it's the water and the food and all that. So, but it's not something they need to take a lot or compulsively or not. So whatever the baby is happy to take is fine. Just let them take that, and you can let it be. Just graduate it. Don't rush it. That's the point I'm making. All right, I need to go home now. Oh, yeah, cheese balls. Thank you. Somebody has reminded me. Yes, it's that cheese balls. I know it's cheese something. A lot of mother asked me that question. I've asked 6 months. Can I maybe start taking cheese balls? No. No cheese balls, no bobo, no ribena, nothing, no Milo, no what are the other favorite ones? Oh, you know what I mean. Don't give them that. You can give them healthy snacks, and healthy snacks in our own dictionary are things like fruits, things like smoothies. You can, like for example, you can blend your banana with a bit of either milk, age appropriate milk, and then you make a smoothie that is healthy. All right, but not all these. The more things you buy from the stores, they are not good. Okay, because most of those things they had a lot of sugar, a lot of salt to them, and children will like them because they are sweet and they are tasty. And then you come home and then you now want to give them what do you want to get? You want to give them peas and carrots. They won't want to eat those ones because those ones don't have that sweet taste. So that is the issue. So we have to be very careful that we let the children learn to eat healthy. We can give them sweets later as like treats, maybe on when they're doing birthdays, on weekend, once in a while, like a treat for them. But it shouldn't be the main thing, because I know children that all they want to drink is drink tea and bread, and they want to eat only biscuit. And actually, I always say, you started it, so don't start first with those ones. Let them be established on healthy food. Then you can now give them treats once in a while as treats. They are meant to be treats. They are not meant to be daily food, that children are supposed to eat. So that's what I meant. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. Yeah, I think I've answered all the questions. Unfortunately, time has gone. We need to go home. What is the cause of pneumonia in a HPSS child? The same thing that causes pneumonia in other children. It's a bacterial infection, but children with sickle cell are more prone to having such pneumonia because their own immune system is not able to fight that particular bacteria. So usually we give them pneumococcal vaccine. We normally give children with sickle cell anemia. We tend to give them that vaccine that protects against pneumonia. So your child should take it, and to take an extra dose even at 5 years so that they can be protected. But it's not always 100%, but it can protect them a lot. Okay, I think I've answered all the questions. Yeah, I think I have. And then we can go home now. I'm still at the hospital, so should I take the baby out? The closer, where are you? The 9 months old baby, the closer clinic that is here is no, don't take a baby to a center. A center cannot treat a child who needs an IV line and doesn't have a line. You don't sometimes go to the closest, you have to go to the right closest that can do the right thing. So the minimum you can go to is a hospital that's a pediatrician, a general hospital, a teaching hospital. If you tell me where you are, I can tell you where to go, but You can send us a message, an inbox message about that. But health center cannot manage your baby. Health center won't be able to manage. Your baby's urine has reduced. Your baby's urine depends on how much of the weather. So, for example, when the weather is hot, babies tend to conserve the water, so they don't pass as much urine compared to when the weather is cold, then they pass urine a lot. But just make sure you're breastfeeding. For us, it's more important that you're breastfeeding. The more you breastfeed, the baby will pass urine. So unless the baby is not making urine at all, then definitely you have to go to the hospital. All right. Thank you. Finally, I have to go. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If you still have questions, I know you do. Please go to Ask the Pediatricians Facebook group. You can post your questions there Mondays to Saturdays. Mondays to Saturday. Don't ask me on Sunday why you can't post. You won't be able to post on Sundays. Mondays to Saturday, 24 hours daily. Our professionals, our moderators, they will answer your questions. On Thursday, listen to Ask the Pediatrician Hour on Fresh Waves Radio, on our YouTube, our Facebook, our we don't do Instagram on that Thursday. Sorry, Instagram people, because it's a recorded one, but you can watch that. You can also listen to my podcast, Ask Dr. Me ATP podcast. So if you miss out on the live session, you can always watch, you can or listen depending on your preference. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I'll see you again same time next week, Monday. God willing, or on Thursday, I'll see you for the ATP hour anyway. So, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Bye. Okay, thank you, Femi, Debbie. Yeah, thank you. Good night. Good night. Bye. Oh no, I want to.